Hello everyone, my name is Nick, I'm the GPU enthusiast. Today we're going to be fixing up an RTX 3070 by Gigabyte. It's currently in the system, that's why I don't have it in my hand, and wanted to get away from just wielding the graphics card in my hand in the beginning of the video. Thanks again for everyone watching the previous two videos. But yeah, we're going to be working on this RTX 3070 Gigabyte that has some major artifacting issues, and the results are pretty cool once we've finished on it. One little update before we get into that though is the test bench this time around is a bit different. The test bench that I test everything on and fix everything on, I kind of bricked the motherboard while updating the BIOS. I updated the BIOS one night just for fun, just to update it because it was out of date. And long story short, while it was updating, for whatever reason, the PC just booted off and would not turn back on. So as you can see, here it is, the Z390A Pro. This thing it's toast. So I have a replacement board coming in tomorrow, believe it or not, while I'm recording this. So we will have a replacement board for that, and we can get back to fixing and testing GPUs. And also in this video, I'm going to go through the step processes of how I fixed the 3070. I don't have actual footage of it artifacting because by now it's already fixed. Which an oversight, I probably should have started recording while I was fixing it, but again, new to this, definitely gonna have that next time around. But we will have footage of what the artifacting looked like. I'll pull something up, and then I'll show you guys how I fixed it, and if you're having issues with artifacting, how you can fix it. So why is your graphics card starting to fail and artifact? In our instance, it was because of our Vbios on the graphics card was malfunctioning or was corrupted. But I can't give you a definite answer. This is not just a one-for-one every single time, hey, to fix an artifacting card, you do this. It could be a plethora of reasons. The most common reason why your card is artifacting would be because I believe the Vbios is corrupted to some extent. I don't know how they get corrupted, I just know that they do sometimes. So in our instance, all we had to do was flush a new Vbios on this 3070, and it was working fine. It would start to download drivers, and it was doing everything it was supposed to be doing. In other cases, and more, I would think also as likely, in the worst scenario in these two, would be that, and I have here in my hands, this is an old AMD Radeon HD graphics card from like 2009. And what's special about this one is that it has the actual GDDR5 RAM chips exposed on the top of the board, so we can actually look at it without opening it up. And so what's happening is, if your card's artifacting and it's not a Vbios issue, it's going to be this. It's going to be this chip right here. It's malfunctioning. It could be corroding inside where the pin connects with the board. It could be just starting to malfunction for whatever reason. And then at that point, you're gonna have to take it to someone, and they're gonna have to remove the chip and solder on a new chip to make the card work. And not a lot of people can do that. So for most people, that's it. That's done so for the card. You're just gonna have to get a new one. And then the final issue, the worst issue out of all of them, could be that your actual GPU core, so the actual processing chip that the GPU runs everything on, the main component, is starting to fail and it's starting to die. If it's doing that, I mean, you're gonna need a whole new GPU at that point, because the chip is gonna have to be replaced. Maybe there's an instance where your chip starts to rise a little bit and it's not making full connection with the PCB board. But most likely it's probably that your GPU is starting to fail. It could have been from temperatures, it could have been just from over time wear and tear, but that is the worst case scenario. And you'll see in our scenario, we lucked out and it was the Vbios. All we had to do was flash a new one and it worked. And I'm gonna actually show you guys now how we did that. step by step, at least for Nvidia cards. AMD cards is going to work a little bit differently. It's a little more of a pain in my opinion from what I've worked with, but Nvidia actually makes it pretty decently easy to flash the VBIOS. You just have to know how to do it, and of course be very careful. If you don't know what you're doing and you don't feel comfortable doing this, do not do it, because if your card is fine and is just acting a little funky and you think, hey, let me flash a new VBIOS on it to make it feel like it's brand new, do not do that. So many things can go wrong. In our case, the card was already messed up, so it didn't matter if we did it or not. But if you accidentally install the wrong VBIOS on your graphics card, you can completely brick it and there will be no display. And unless you have another GPU on hand or some sort of computer with integrated graphics that can reflash the BIOS again, the old one, you're gonna have a bricked card and you're not gonna be able to do anything with it. So with that said, let's move on to actually showing you guys how we did this.
Alright everyone, so now we're going to show you guys the processes I took to fix this card. The first thing I did was open up the card and examine the board itself, making sure there wasn't anything blown on the board before I plugged it in and booted it and started sparking and catching on fire. Everything was fine. The card was dirty, so we cleaned up the radiator, we cleaned up the board itself with some rubbing alcohol, and applied some new thermal paste to the core. Everything kind of checked out for the most part, so we reassembled it, and it was still artifacting, so I wasn't expecting just a cleaning to fix the artifacting, of course, but it's, you know, you never know. So the next step was to download a new VBIOS or flash a new VBIOS on this graphics card, and I'm gonna demonstrate how you do that. Now, before I do this, I'm going to say this: if your card is not broken and you do not have a computer that can actively test and reflash BIOSes on your graphics card. So if you can actively flash VBIOS with an integrated graphics CPU on like a test bench that you own, do not do this, because if you flash the wrong VBIOS on your graphics card, or just the VBIOS installation doesn't go correctly, you could brick your GPU to the point where it's not going to load anything. And if your computer does not have integrated graphics, or the setting to allow integrated graphics to run with a GPU in it that is not working, you won't be able to boot into your PC, and your graphics card will be dead unless you take it to someone to flash the proper VBIOS on it, or your backup VBIOS. So in our case, it didn't really matter because we have integrated graphics, so we can boot into this computer with the CPU graphics and have a GPU installed. And the card doesn't work to begin with, so it's already artifacting, it's not working. So the first step you're going to take is you're going to go to your browser, and you're going to go to techpowerup.com, and you're going to download, for a Nvidia graphics card, you're going to download NV Flash. I already have it downloaded, so I'm not going to download it. You can click here, and that will show you, a bunch of mirrors that you can pick. But this is typically what you're going to want to do, or is it not typically, but it's what you're going to want to do. So after you download NV Flash, you're going to want to search for your BIOS. Just do a Google search with Tech PowerUp, and just search your graphics card, and look for the proper VBIOS for it. This one right here is a VBIOS from 2021. For the Gigabyte RTX 3070 8GB gaming OC, this is the card that we have currently. So yeah, we download this BIOS, and it's going to be a bunch of numbers. It's going to be this right here, gigabyte.rtx 3070 blah 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 .rom. Make sure that is the proper graphics card. There is a forums that you can go to on Tech PowerUp, and you can ask questions and ask people, if it's the right thing, if it's the right VBIOS, and people are pretty friendly and will answer your questions. So, like I said, be very careful. Make sure you're downloading the right VBIOS. Even the same graphics cards can have different VBIOS. There's different models of the same graphics card with different requirements and different heat sinks. So please, again, for the love of God, make sure that you're downloading the right one, because if you do it wrong and you don't have a way to boot into Windows with a bricked GPU, you're not going to be able to flash a new BIOS on it, and your PC is going to be done till you get another GPU, or you fix your GPU from giving it to someone else to fix it. So once you have these things installed, pull it up here, you're going to want to install NVFlash, and you're going to want to make a folder with the NVFlash 64 application, and you're just going to want to name it NVFlash in your local disk. So you're going to go to your local disk, so this PC, local disk, and you want to make a folder called NVFlash, and you're going to want to put your NVFlash 64 in here. Now you're not going to open this, you're going to actually run this through terminal or command prompt, and you're going to right click and run it as an administrator. It's very, very important, and damn, that was loud. It's very important that you run this as an administrator, because if you do not do that, it will not work. So what are you going to do from here? You're just going to type in cd space c, lowercase c, colon, backslash, and you're going to type in NVFlash. So that folder we made for the application, you're going to do that. Now you're going to be in this directory. So anyone that's ever used Linux will understand how this kind of works, is where you type in cd blah blah blah, and you actually get to the folder. So right now we're in NVFlash in command prompt in the folder. So now we're going to run a command to flash the BIOS. So what we're going to do is we're going to type NVFlash 64, and then we're going to do space dash 6 space whatever the file name of the BIOS you downloaded is. Make sure that the BIOS is also in the same NVFlash folder, so it will be in the same directory, so it can actually install it and download it to your or install it into your GPU. It's okay to rename the folder as long as the .rom is at the end of the file. So as long as it stays a ROM file, you can name it whatever you want. Here I named it fix.rom, and then you would basically type fix.rom, and you would click enter. I'm not going to do that because we already fixed it and we don't want to mess with it anymore. But basically, this will install the BIOS for you, and you're going to click enter. It's going to ask you if you want to proceed. You'll click Y. It's going to ask you again, do you really want to proceed? Click Y. It's just giving you the warning that, hey, if this isn't the right BIOS, you're going to brick your graphics card. So, like I said, be very careful. But this is the steps I took to fix this GPU, at least to stop artifacting. So yeah, that's mainly it. It's going to ask you to restart the computer. You'll restart the computer. You'll have to re-download all your Nvidia drivers and everything. But now we have an actual functioning 3070. And I can't tell you how glad I was that it actually worked out that way, because I was very afraid that we weren't going to be able to fix it. But we were able to. So we'll get into some benchmarks now and some games. So yeah, enjoy. And the first stress test we're going to have here is Combustor. This is the only stress test I'm going to do in the video. An MSI Combustor, you can run this through the MSI Afterburner app, and it will tell you if the card is artifacting or not, as you can see in the bottom right over here, how many times it artifacts in a specific run of the stress test. It's going to give you several things. It's going to tell you the GPU load. It's going to give you CPU or GPU temps. It's going to give you the FPS and the speed, how long it's been running, and how many frames have been loaded. And then you can also see the CPU temps, the resolution it's set at, what it's running. It's running an OpenGL 4.6.0 with the latest NVIDIA drivers, and then your RAM usage, etc., etc., and the graphics card. So yeah, I mean, it's running very well. It's running at a consistent 76 to 78 frames per second. It's a little higher. It's around the 80s when I'm not recording, but obviously I'm recording this natively on the system, so it drops the frames just a tad bit. And there we go. We got into the 80s there. But yeah, I mean, we have 0 artifacts. It's running the test very well. This stress test on older GPUs, so like for instance my old 1070 Ti, would struggle to run this, and there was nothing wrong with it. It would run at like 30 frames. So for this thing to be running at 70 to 80 frames is very, very good, especially for a card that wasn't working properly and wouldn't download drivers or really run at all, just artifact a bunch. But yeah, so that is MSI Combustor. First game we're going to start off here with is CSGO. Fair note with the CPU on this PC being the 4600G, it's not going to be running at the most optimized frames. This CPU is not the best in the world for gaming. But yeah, we're running at like a consistent 140 frames. There's some dips here in the deathmatch on Dust 2, but overall not a bad performance. The card ran really good, but the CPU's kind of being the bottleneck here. Next here we have Rust, and Rust ran pretty smooth on ultra settings. I mean, again, the CPU, I keep bringing it up, but the CPU is really not helping here. This Ryzen 5 4600G. But I mean, consistent 70 FPS with max settings in Rust. Again, Rust is one of those titles you're not going to be normally playing on max settings, because you're going to try to maximize your FPS, because it is an FPS shooter. That it's very important that you have frames and you know, in gunfights. So yeah. Finally here we have Cyberpunk 2077. Again, CPU did not bottleneck us as much on this one title because it's a very GPU intensive title. Running at a consistent 85, 80 frames, dipping into the 70 sometimes, hitting 90. This is again on max settings. No ray tracing this time around. I just didn't do it mainly because of just the CPU and stuff. And I know CPU doesn't play a huge factor on ray tracing, but I don't know, I just didn't want to I didn't want to try it. Again, this will be the only video I think we're going to have on this computer, or at least on this test bench, and then we'll have the proper test bench back hopefully for the next video, as I do get parts in for it tomorrow. But yeah, again, it was still very playable, very enjoyable on max settings. Here we have a Sanzo, and again, just keep in mind the CPU being kind of the bottleneck here and not making as perform as it would get on the test bench. But I mean, we're hitting about consistent 60 frames. We're dipping down into the 50s in some parts. This is on ultra settings. I really didn't think the CPU would affect the frames this much, but it really does. I mean, you could see the difference between the 2080 and the 3070 here, and then when I was running this 3070 on the test bench before I bricked the Mobo, I mean, this was running at like 80, 90 frames, so the CPU is really causing some problems here. But I mean, the gameplay was still very playable and very enjoyable.
Alright everyone, that's going to be the end of the review for the 3070. Very pleased with the outcome. All we had to do was flash that Vbios and it worked perfectly fine, which is rare. Usually there's going to be a hardware issue, but we lucked out on this one. Thank you for everyone watching. Leave a like, comment if you'd like to see us review a specific card or do anything else. I have a pre-built video hopefully coming out within the next couple of weeks that we will be working on assembling this pre-built and selling it and making a video on it, from parts that we've fixed and parts that we've bought used to basically flip a PC here. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to look really cool in my opinion. But again, like I said, thank you for watching the video. It's always appreciated. Leave a comment if you guys have advice for us for things to do differently, or if you just enjoyed the video. And you all have a great day.
I just wanted to add here this in the end. I totally forgot to in the closing monologue. I just want to say thank you to my girlfriend Felicia, and thank you to my friend Logan for editing these videos. Both of them helped me out. At least Felicia helped me out with the last one, and Logan helps me out all the time with editing these, and I really do appreciate it. So I wanted to add this just here at the end, and also apologize for the lack of gameplay in these. There's only 4 games that we tested. We're just limited to the hard drive space on the computer I tested it on, since the test bench is not functioning at the moment. But the next review will have that all sorted out, no problem. But again, thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.